Coming to you from the office of the Chillicothe Police Chief, Keith Washburn. He is retiring. We will talk more about that in just a moment, right after this from Hometown Motors Incorporated.
Cut in total professional comfort. Husqvarna. Available now at Hometown Motors Incorporated, 818 Eastern Avenue, Chillicothe.
20 plus years on the force here at Chillicothe, and you joined some other folks who have retired this year too, so there's a touch of turnaround, but when you lose the chief, that's a big turnaround.
Everybody can be replaced. I can be replaced. There's we call it the class of 2020, the retirements that we're having this year. It's unusually high, but that's just how the hiring occurred throughout the years. And I think once this group of officers, the class of 2020, is replaced, 25 years from now, the city of Chillicothe is going to have the exact same problem. You're going to have a bunch go. But like I said, anybody can be replaced.
Talk about what it's been like being, first of all, a cop here in Chillicothe.
Working for the city of Chillicothe is by far the greatest job. What's the only job I've ever had outside of being a soldier, but loved every minute of it. The first 11 years as a road officer, I couldn't wait to get to work. Each day was totally different. There were so many things that you could do while you were out on the road to help people and help make our community better. As I moved up through the ranks, probably the best job I had on the department was midnight shift sergeant. That was the job where you kind of got to pick and choose what you wanted to do, and then you could kind of teach the newer, younger officers how to do things. Then through the rank of captain was purely administrative, and it was basically on-the-job training for the current job. I tell everyone that being the police chief is the best job you could have. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when that phone's going to ring. And I guess the buck stops here at this desk. If something goes wrong, it's my fault. I take the licks for it. If something is good, I make sure the other people get the praise for it. But it's the most satisfying part about this job is when you can see that you've helped someone and you've made a difference. I've had a lot of people through the years come up to me and say, "Do you remember me?" And you're like, "No, unfortunately I don't. You arrested me one time." "Okay, what'd you do?" "Well, I did this, this, and this, and I'm so glad you arrested me." And you walk away thinking, "Man, I changed this guy's life." And you have a few of those, and then there's obviously the people who you run into that they didn't run that red light, it was yellow. And in 25 years, I don't think I've ever cited anyone for running a red light. They've all ran yellow lights. Ask them. I look back on it, and here the past couple of weeks, it's very hard to walk away from something you love. I know I have a bright future where I'm headed, but I just love this community, and hopefully I made a difference.
One thing that maybe folks don't realize is that you obtained a law degree just a couple of years ago, and you're going to be using that law degree.
Yes, I will start a new career next Tuesday as an assistant prosecutor in Jackson County.
Not a whole lot of time off there either.
No, and I planned it that way. Like I said, it's going to be rough transitioning from this, where being a police officer and being the police chief, it's a lifestyle. I always said my wife was the police commissioner. Several times at night when the phone rang, she was, "Keith, get up, answer the phone." And a couple of times she would always ask, "What was that call?" And I can remember one specifically was a fatality. And I was so tired. She said, "Keith, what happened?" And I said, "Yeah, we got in a pursuit. We wrecked, and the guy wrecked, and he's deceased." And she said, "Get your clothes on and get out to the scene." And I was like, "Yeah." So the whole family's involved. From the Halloween parade was, both of my kids grew up riding in the parade, throwing out candy. July 4th, my wife always came in and rode with me, even when I was a captain. So the family was just as involved with this job as I was. I had a lot of family support to keep me sane.
There's probably a lot of people who have sat in that chair that could say the same thing. We go back to the Andy Griffith show. How much Andy, as Sheriff Taylor, had all surrounding. I think a lot of people tried to emulate that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I like, as much as I hate to say, with all the technology we have and the education that we have in law enforcement, you have to go back to the roots, the Andy Griffith style of policing, where you know everyone, you treat everyone with respect. That was the goal. One of the things that I always told these police officers is every time you contact someone, treat that person like they're your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather. It's going to go a long way, and you'll have people who will remember that. The Andy Griffith, I like that.
You served with Larry Cox,
Yes.
and it's been 15 years now since we lost him. And it wasn't fair for whoever came in to fill his shoes, because you just couldn't fill Larry's shoes.
So when I first got hired, I had the opportunity to ride with Larry a few times during training. And Larry Cox knew everyone in the city of Chillicothe. It seemed that Larry was your Andy Griffith. And I can remember driving down the street in a patrol car on afternoon shift, and his arm was out the window the whole time, hey, and he knew everyone. That was a huge loss to not only the police department, but the community as a whole. Larry was just the all-around good guy. He knew everyone. I think he was the model community policing officer.
Talk, if you would, about some of your other efforts since becoming chief. Corrine Woods has just been, you and I first sat down and talked in the radio studio. You could just tell that you had a special place in your heart for that kid.
I do. Corrine Woods, the first time I met her, here's this young lady, and she's accomplished everything. She's gone above and beyond for everything that she does, and she tells me she wants to raise money for a police canine. I said, okay, if you can raise the money, we'll buy a dog. Well, she did, and we bought a dog. And we bought another dog. And then we bought the containment system for a police cruiser. And she raised tons and tons of money. And I see this girl, young lady, going places. Super smart, just, I think she walks on water. I think she's, wish my kids were like her. A couple things, she got me to get in the dunk tank in the city park. I will never get in a dunk tank again. I've done that 2 times in my life. The first time I broke my toe, and the second one that Corrine had, it beat me to death. Never again. I'll take pies in the face. You can do whatever, but no dunk tanks.
Speaking of pies in the face, that was something that you were trying to avoid last year with the fundraising efforts.
Yes, and I ended up getting 3 in the face, and it was worth it. Cancer's touched, my family personally. I lost my dad to cancer. My mom's a survivor. So the Southern Ohio Survivors has a special place in my heart, and anytime we did some type of fundraiser, we always made sure that it went to Southern Ohio Survivors. And the pie in the face, I was going to win that come hell or high water. And I did. And Lynn Bunstein said she had 2 little girls who wanted to pay $100 to put a pie in my face. And I said, okay. And the first one, the little girl got me right in the chin. And then the second one, Lynn kind of helped. She put it right on top of my head. But it was worth every second of it.
Yeah, your No Shave November was really huge. During the time SOS accepted funds from that, it has to be close to, if not more than, $5,000. Yeah,
that's a big hit around here. And I wanted to expand that in a couple different ways, and I know there was some talk about it. I wanted to wear pink badges, and the way the uniforms are now, the badges are sewn on, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. And hopefully the next chief will continue that tradition with the no shave. I know it's very popular in the community. for some of us, have a little difficulty growing beards.
But very popular with the officers too.
Yes, the officers love it.
This is not the first time cameras have been in your office. During the documentaries that have made their way through Chillicothe following the story of the missing women and such tragedy that we've learned through all of that, still some not solved. I know that's got to be probably one of the more challenging moments while you've been chief.
Yes, that's the one thing that I would love to have had all the answers before I left. Unfortunately, I don't. Several times you ask yourself, okay, did we do this right? And the thing that I know is someone out there knows something. And it's just that one little piece of information. If someone would come forward and say, tell me A, B, or C, or just give me that B so I can connect A, B, and C together. Or the next chief or the detectives, FBI, BCI, whomever. Just give us that one piece of information. Let these families get closure. And speaking of the cameras in here, it seemed the first documentary was kind of sincere about their approach and the way they displayed things. And the second documentary, I think they were more in it for money, glory, and fame. It was more of a let's run down law enforcement, and I wasn't too pleased with that one.
You reside in a building with the county sheriff department in your city, and that I could see some departments not getting along, but it seems like this has been a perfect marriage.
Yes. Well, we have our lovers' quarrels, the sheriff. If there's something that happens in town, I call the sheriff and vice versa. And it's usually, what do you need? And vice versa. We work very well together. And the majority of the major incidents we've had in town or in the county, you're going to see a white car and a black car, and often a silver car. And sometimes you're going to see the green OD&R truck there too. Everybody in this community works very well hand in hand together in law enforcement. Every person in this county who works in this building or the building out on Hospital Road have the same goal, and that's to make this community safer and a better place to live. Because the majority of all the uniformed officers live here. This is our home, and you have to take care of your home.
Have you seen that be a unique circumstance?
Right. Our community is unique in the approach that we take to working together. You have some areas, even in the state of Ohio, where this department doesn't want to work with this department and such. But here, everybody works together. Recently, the past 4 weeks, we've had 2 drug interdiction details where city, county, and state patrol work together. We share resources. So I'm very fortunate to have the relationship that I've had personally and professionally with Sheriff Lavender. It's made it a lot easier sitting in this office.
What are you going to miss about the job?
The people. That's going to be the, hardest part, is to walk away from the people. And it's not just the people in here, but the people you meet on the streets and the community members with whom you engage on a daily, weekly basis. That's going to be the roughest part.
But now you don't have to worry about cameras in your face.
No. I got used to cameras. I kind of got thrust into this job back in 2014, and anything that could go wrong went wrong. The missing women, the heroin epidemic, and now this pandemic, and it's like I just wanted to coast out. I knew back in December that I was leaving in May. I just hadn't picked the appropriate date, and I thought, okay, if we can just coast out and just fade away into the sunset, and then middle of March we get this pandemic, and you're like, you have to be kidding me. Just for once, can I have it easy here?
And now you're having to devise ways of hand-to-hand connection with people. You know, you've got to protect your officers. I mean, it's one thing to go out and stop a fight, but now they got to have gloves on and masks.
Right. Yeah, and I had to put out, you know, emails, hey, these are not optional. This is for your protection. You know, you don't want to get this COVID. And one of the things that I've seen with police officers, every police officer is macho. And, you know, they can survive the COVID. That's their thought. Okay, you can survive COVID, but if you're a carrier, what happens to grandma, grandpa, your great aunt, your great uncle, you know, when you bring that virus to them? You know, you may survive it, but they won't. And that's the way that we had to look at it. And fortunately, I know Captain Banfield's going to be the interim chief, so I've kind of given him the reins and throughout this and let him handle a lot of stuff to make sure he's ready for it.
Final words. How do you put a wrap on things?
Well, the first thing I would like to do is thank the community for allowing me to be their chief. Most importantly, my family, my wife, my children. I've never been an emotional person, but here, you know, lately, I've quite a few emotions. You know, I think this job made me emotional after a while, but so many people help make this job so much easier and successful, and I want to thank everyone. You know, it's been a rough ride, but I made it. I'm sane and I'm alive. A little heavier, but I'm alive.
We all are after having
yes, but you know, to the community, I thank you, and you're in good hands, and the next chief will do well.
And watch out, Jackson County, here I come.
It's a whole new learning curve.
Yeah.